Welcome, everyone. My name is Taurus the Legend. Thank you so much for joining us in our final edition for 2023 of the SAP BTP Garage Series. We have our final episode to share with you today. Today, we're going to be focusing on Get Started with SAP BTP Cloud Identity Service Provider. And our speaker for today is my colleague, Nagesh Karpathy, Senior Onboarding Advisor at SAP and SAP. You can find the mission very simply if you're going into the Discovery Center and just type in the title of the mission. You can easily get this and follow along, or launch the mission after the session is over. Before we get started, I just want to let you guys know that our new series will be sent very, very shortly for 2024. And usually our sessions are held the first Wednesday of every month, but because most of you are probably still on vacation on the first week of January, just for January, we're making an exception. We're starting it on the second week on January the 11th. And then in February, we'll go back to the first Wednesday of every month. Our next mission in January will focus on empowered data-driven decisions through analytics forecasting. Also, there's a number of webinars that we're planning. I'll post those in the chat as we move forward. With that, I'd like to hand it over to Nagesh to take us through the mission. Nagesh? Nagesh, you're on mute. Nagesh?
Okay, yeah, thank you. I hope I'm audible now.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining for today's session. So I will be the speaker for today, like Taurus introduced. So let me start quickly sharing my screen as well. Please let me know if that's visible.
It's coming up. Yes, I can see your screen.
Fantastic. Okay, so a small introduction about myself. I'm the BTP onboarding advisor. I take care of APJ region and help our customers to get started with the business technology platform services itself. So what exactly do we do, right? So it's also equally important for me to introduce my job role and what I do from my team perspective. So BTP onboarding team is one of the team which help our customers to get started with all the business technology platform services, including the license details or the license discussion, and also help you to understand the best practices on how to set up your business technology platform. And that is where one of the topic is with regards to the security and the cloud identity services. So we have gone ahead and created one of the mission which can help our customers to get started, and that is how we are here today talking about it. So at any point of stage, if you think that you are also just getting started with your new licenses of business technology platform, and if you need some support, you're always welcome to scan this QR code, or you can just search on Google for business technology platform onboarding resource center, and you can reach us directly and we can help you out with a session. So this is going to be a one-to-one interaction specifically for your account as a customer. So you always have the eligibility to reach us anytime. Okay, so this is the agenda that I've just put up over here today. So a small introduction at the Discovery Center mission itself, and then taking a look at the business technology platform application layer security, right? So it's important, like what area are we focusing? So we will be focusing on the application layer, and then we will touch upon the cloud identity services, specifically on the authentication scenarios and the provisioning scenarios. And finally, we will take a look at the global user ID, and then a small demo towards the end of this particular session. So let me stop my camera for some time because it might eat up my bandwidth when I'm sharing multiple screens. Okay, so please confirm if you're able to see my screen still, Taurus.
Yes, I can see your screen. Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay. Sorry, yeah, that's okay. All right, so this is the Discovery Center. I believe most of you are aware of it. So most of the details that is related to business technology platform can be found over here. So if you simply navigate to the mission section and you just search for get started with identity service, or you can just type in Identity Services, and the first mission will be popping up over here. So in my case, I've just started it for today. I had one more session, so I had just started it. So I'll just open it and give you a small introduction to this particular mission. So here it gives you the complete overview on what Cloud Identity Services is all about, and what are the challenges and how it can help you to overcome some of these challenges. So we have just captured some of the important images over here, which can help you to understand how it can support your organizational requirement. And if you move on to the second uh, tab, it gives you the complete project information itself. So we have split into multiple categories like Discover, which again, it talks about the target audience, like who will be focusing on this particular topic, because it will be, developers will not be much aware of it whenever you're trying to set up a new configuration. So developers will come into picture once they have authorizations on accessing some of these areas, and only then it will work upon. Right. So this is where we talk about the target audience, and you can also join our on-demand webinars. You can take a look at these webinars or join the live onboarding webinars that we do. And one of the areas, like what exactly is Cloud Identity Services itself. So I will walk you through these details throughout the presentation. First and foremost, I would like to talk about the license model. So I'll just click on it so that it's easy for you to understand. So when you purchase any SAP cloud services, it could be SAP Business Technology Platform, it could be SuccessFactors, S/4HANA system. So cloud identity services will be bundled along with some of these services that you're purchasing. And specifically, if you're getting started with SAP Business Technology Platform, you will be receiving two tenants. One, we call it as the productive tenant. The second one, we call it as the test tenant. So you can see that we have captured the information over here, test and production system. And this is going to be a free of cost service for you, so that it will help you to manage your user identity services. And this can help you to work within your SAP to SAP connectivity systems. In case if you're connecting to a third-party system, there might be a certain charge that is applicable. Again, you can visit the pricing section and you can take a look at those details whenever you're considering to connect to non-SAP systems. So this can work anywhere between your SAP to any SAP systems for you to get started with that. So that's about the pricing. I hope that helps you to understand that it's free of cost, and you can also get started with that. And in case some of you have already activated some of these services on the Cloud Identity Service, and you're quite not sure like where to find this information, we've also captured this details like where to find your existing IDP service that you have activated. It could be either from Business Technology Platform, SuccessFactors, or your S/4HANA systems, because we have seen that customers procure multiple licenses at different stages of their organization requirements. So there could be a possibility that you already have an IAS and you might be duplicating the efforts and trying to recreate the entire user base. So do not do that. Click on this particular link, and it's a public link. You just have to enter your customer ID. So you just have to, this is the same link that I was talking about. So you have to enter the customer ID. And once you enter the customer ID, it will list all the details of your existing cloud IaaS services along with who has the authorization to control it or who has the authorization to manage it. So all the information is displayed over here. So it's equally important whenever you're trying to spin up a new tenant, ensure that you are not trying to duplicate the efforts. In case if you want an additional tenant, you can always do it, but ensure that you are not trying to duplicate it if it's not required. Okay, so then you also have some of these details like what exactly BTP is all about, where can cloud identity services fit in. So I'll be talking about this during the presentation. And one of the things that I would like to cover while I'm on this page is in terms of activating the SAP Cloud Identity Services itself. So first and foremost, you need to be a part of your global account administrator role if you're trying to activate it from the business technology platform. And you need to create a sub account so that you can try to assign the entitlements. So in my case, I've just created a demo cloud identity service, which is a sub account, and then I'm assigning the entitlements. So in most of the scenarios, if you're the sub account administrator and the global account administrator, this entitlement will be assigned automatically. So in my case, I'm just demonstrating it so that we do not miss out about any of these steps. So you can see that we have assigned the service, and then you go to Service Marketplace within your sub account, and then select the Cloud Identity Services. Once you select this, you can hit on the Create button, and you have to select the plan. You can select as default, and then you can select the test system, right? Because if you're focusing on the development aspects or a POC aspects, yeah, I see some background noise. If you can, if attendees can go on mute, it'll be really helpful. Okay, so you will get an option to select either a test system or a production system. So in my case, I've considered this for a non-productive scenario. So I've just picked up the test system, and then all you need to do is hit on the create button. Once you click on create, a service will pop up immediately, and this might take around 1 or 2 minutes, and the instance will be active for you. And the person who creates this service will become the default administrator in the Cloud Identity Service as well. So here he will also receive a welcome email talking about the tenant activation link. Once you click on it, the link will be activated. So these are the details on how to activate the service. And once you log into the Cloud Identity Service, you can also see that you have the opportunity to manage the users, create users, administrators, and also you have access to the cloud identity provisioning. So in the past, IAS and IPS services were two different links in terms of the URL access. So we have rebranded it, and we have just come up with one particular URL so that you can access both authorization and authentication that can be done at one single stage itself. So I hope this is also helpful in case if you're just getting started, you can follow this particular mission. And in terms of learning about user authorization, identity provisioning, everything has been captured step by step, and we have shared most of the information that's important for you to get started over here, right? And then we also talk about establishing trust between the systems. So this is nothing but you have to have a mutual exchange of, you have to have a mutual trust between your cloud identity services and the sub accounts so that your applications can work seamlessly along with the users that you're trying to create. So we have just captured some of the details on how this can be done, and it's most of the settings over here in terms of trust. It's a single click. All you need to do is I'll demonstrate that during the demo as well. So this pretty much completes the Discovery Center mission. It might take around 2 to 3 hours for you if you're just doing it for the first time. And whenever you start the mission, please ensure that you are also marking it as complete, as in when you complete and you move to the next step. So here you will be able to see a button which says mark as complete, so that in case if you're stopping the mission and you're coming back at a later point of time, it helps you to track and it lets you know that what exactly you have completed and what is due, so that you are aware about the entire mission itself. Good. So let me go back to my presentation so that you have some technical understanding on this particular topic as well, right? So whenever we're talking about security and the application user identity management, this is not something which can be done individually. This is, again, the program that needs to be run at an organization level, and at each level that you're working with your employees and the business users who are using the application itself. So at the top, you can see that at an organization level, it's equally important for us to set an awareness, talk about the security governance and the risk management. So awareness could be something like what could be the type of phishing emails that comes into our inbox, and knowingly or unknowingly, we might click on it and we might end up losing some of the user authentication, which we use for our corporate identity services as well, right? So it's important to ensure at each level. And when we're talking about the process, it's also important to set some regulatory process in terms of compliance, ensure we follow the data privacy and protection. Audit and fraud management can also be considered whenever there is a process that needs to be set up for your organization. And for today's discussion, we are primarily focusing on the application layer. So this is where we will be focusing on the identity management and the single sign-on and the authentication mechanism, along with roles and authorizations. At the system level, again, you can see that a lot of factors come into picture. And at the environment level, that's all about network security, operational databases, and client security, which again has multiple discussions and can have dedicated discussions based on your setup that you're planning for your use case scenarios. Now, specifically coming back to the business technology platform. So if you are aware of business technology platform, so we give you options to manage users at each level. So as you get access to your business technology platform, you will be having an option to either become a global account administrator, or you will have access as a global account viewer, which is the read-only access. So as an administrator, you will be responsible to manage the complete entitlements at your global account. You will have access to your billing information. You will have access to create new directories, new sub-accounts. Everything can be done at a global account administrator. And once you create these directories and sub-accounts, you also have the flexibility to be the administrator, or you can delegate the administrator role to the project individuals who can take care of their projects and be the administrator at a directory or at a sub account. And then further, if you're running on your runtime environments like Cloud Foundry, you also have the options to become an administrator over there. So you can see that it's a layer approach. So based on your requirement, you can set it up according to your project requirements and the use cases that you're working on. And at each layer, we ideally define these two terminologies whenever we are working with applications. So a person who is basically using the platform, so it could be an administrator at a global level, a sub-account level. So any developer who is also using the platform to develop their applications, so we generally term them as a platform user. And a person who is basically consuming the applications that we develop and put it in a production system. So the person who is actually using the application, irrespective of he's aware of the business technology platform or where exactly you're hosting it, right? So that will be the business user who will be consuming the application. So such a person, we term it as a business user. So there are multiple ways that you can configure this. I will demonstrate it when we go to the demo section on this particular topic as well. Okay, so to connect some of the dots from the previous slide, over here, it's about the platform users that I'm talking about. So in this particular section, you can see that at the top, you can see that there are multiple applications that you can host. You can make use of SAP Start services, Work Zone services, Task Center services. So this is where your business, most of the business users will be connecting, and they can see what data you are pulling from your backend system. So it could be SuccessFactors, S4HANA, or anything, right? So this is the business user access that they get. And towards the bottom, you can see that we have BTP applications that you will be hosting, running, doing the development. Everything will be at the BTP application level. And then you have the persistence layer, again, at data encryption that is happening from the business technology platform services itself. So all these things, wherever you have an access to the user authorization, this can be connected to the cloud identity services. So this comes in handy in terms of user management, provisioning services, authorization, role management, everything can be managed using the cloud identity services itself. Okay, so one quick question that we always hear from customers is, okay, can I use cloud identity services as a central access point for all my SAP cloud services? Yes, you can definitely do that. So towards the right-hand side, you can see that we give you the option to connect to all our SAP cloud services, as well as on-premise services as well. So there might be a little bit of additional configurations that needs to be considered, but on this image, you can see that it gives you the option to connect to your multiple sources and multiple destinations. So another quick question that people ask us is, can I use my existing identity provider? So yes, the answer is yes for that as well. So you can see that we give you an option to connect to your corporate identity provider. So this could be an Active Directory or an LDAP system that you already have the users, or it could be an Azure cloud or Okta or anything, right? So it gives you the option so that you do not have to reinvest or recreate all the users from your existing identity provider. Okay, so let's understand a little bit more on the cloud identity services itself, specifically on the identity authentication. So what exactly is identity authentication service? So this is a system which can help you to act as a proxy in case if you have an existing IAM infrastructure, and a simple central configuration so that it is easy for you to configure and the users can be authenticated with the existing setup itself. And you can also see that we give you the secure authentication with multi-factor authentication itself. So when we are talking about multi-factor, there are multiple ways that you can configure the authentication. So I'll talk about it in the next slide. And it can also help you in terms of user management so that you can set policies for each of the users. So some of the policies could be like the password should have to be changed or updated every 3 months. So these policies can also be configured using the cloud identity services itself. Now, in terms of the authentication services, the multi-factor authentication, you can see that we have multiple ways that you can configure. So username and password being the basic setup, which is, again, if you're going in a production environment, we would always recommend to have a two-factor authentication. Either it could be an SMS-based authentication or an authenticator app that SAP has provided. You can just install it and ensure that users are authenticated using the multi-factor authentication service that we're giving. And one of the other services is with regards to the X509. I guess most of you are aware of certificate-based authentication. So based on your requirement, based on how secure you want to ensure that the users are and the application is, you can pick up any of these services and you can configure them for user authentication. And it also gives you the complete details, like you can either connect with your Azure AD, third-party identity provider, or in case if you have an on-premise system where you've already have a user store, you can simply make use of the cloud connector and ensure you're using the existing setup that you already have. So what are the interoperable cases over here? So most of the services that we're offering is dependent on SAML or an OIDC, which is again Open ID Connect that we call it as. So if it is an on-premise, we always go with the SAML approach because OpenIDC is not OIDC is not supported. So if you're using cloud-to-cloud connections, we always recommend to go with OIDC so that your mobile applications and few other things are also supported. So just I've also captured some of the basic differences over here. So you can see that OpenID Connect is a simple identity layer which basically works on OAuth2 protocol, and this allows end user interoperable, and it is again working on a REST-like manner. On the other hand, if you're taking up a SAML authentication, this is basically for a web-based application. And again, it might not be so compatible with all the services. So that's why if you're working on any cloud-to-cloud scenarios, we would always recommend to go with the OpenID Connect, and everything works very smoothly. Yeah, so this again, delegated authentication. So we just wanted to bring a small update, like how exactly the delegated authentication works. So whenever there is a user who is trying to connect to any of the cloud applications, so either the authentication will be redirected from the identity authentication to the corporate identity. Once the corporate identity validates the username and the credential, the SAML response will be passed on to the identity authentication system. And once it's approved, the service will be accessible for this particular user so that he has the complete authorizations to access your application. So this is how a delegated authentication mechanism works. So this can be considered with multiple identity provider, and it can also have a policy that can be set up. So here you can see that we have multiple people who are trying to access. So you have multiple partners whom you're working with. You can have a partner identity provider, you have externals, and you also have employees of your own organization. So either you can verify with an IP range, or you can create a user member group so that only certain users will have access to certain applications, and you have a general user type or an email domain. Like if you have sap.com, only those employees will be, or those users will be able to authenticate with some of these identity providers. So a lot of mechanisms, a lot of options that is available for you to set up in terms of your authentication mechanisms itself. So quick value proposition, why exactly you should go this? Why exactly you should be considering your cloud identity services? One important update is most of the SAP services sooner or later will be making use of cloud identity services. So you can see some of the services like SAP Start, which was recently announced, and you also have work zone capacity. You have work zone applications, you have task center applications. All these applications has a prerequisite that you need to have cloud identity services in picture. So this is where we recommend that you start your cloud identity services consideration whenever you're starting any project. Start using cloud identity services so that you do not have to revisit the entire security model when you are trying to hit a production scenario, or you're trying to go with a new use case approaches, right? And it also gives you the flexibility to configure multiple factor authentication, single sign-on applications, and a lot of integration things can also be taken care. And it, of course, follows the audit log mechanism. So whenever you're trying to log into the system, it also tracks like who is trying to log in, and what are the applications that you're trying to connect. All these audit logs can also be tracked using the cloud identity services. So this is another slide which just basically gives you what are the different authentication options. So on the right hand side, you can see that this is a small example that I just considered for a two-factor authentication. You can simply install an SAP Authenticator app that is available for Android and Google. You can download it, and whenever you're configuring it, there is a QR code that is generated. And from the application, you scan the QR code, and that will start generating the tokens for you. The code will be applicable for every 45 seconds or 30 seconds. A new code will be generated. So you just validate the soft token or the code that generates, and you will be authorized to access your applications within your corporate environment. And few other capabilities that I would just like to highlight over here is you can also set custom password policies which other Active Directories or any authentication mechanism provides. So you can set up your corporate policy saying that the password length should be minimum 8 characters, and the password lifetime can be 6 months or 8 months, and you can set the attempt period, like if the password is locked, what could be the time period that you can reset the password, right? So these are some of the functionalities that is also offered, which is pretty much standard to all other identity management services. And then you can also see that we support web-based authentication, TP-based authentication, multiple ways that you can set it up. And then we have this access control mechanism that I just briefly touched upon in the previous slide. And you also can combine this with risk-based authentication. So say, suppose you're trying to configure a risk-based authentication, you can create the rules that are displayed, and it can be sorted based on priority. So first you can say that I would like to consider an IP range, and then you allow the users to access the application. In case if there is a second authentication mechanism, you can also configure that, and you can also do self-registration if it is required, and you can also consider email verification. So in terms of email verification, you can see that the email verification, you can do it for your phone number, password set, everything, and you also support Google reCAPTCHA, so that it ensures that it's not a robot or it's not a system that's validating the details, and it's an actual person who is validating the information itself. Good. And then the last thing, just wanted to talk about the branding and customizations, because we all love to have our company's logo and branding that is also applicable in most of the places. So the cloud identity services also ensures that it gives you the flexibility to have your branding, and you can also have a fully customized CSS file that you can upload, and you can also manage the privacy policy, IDP proxy, and it also supports email templates. So email templates, basically, if you're trying to add a new user, or if a user is trying to do a self-registration, once the registration is completed or once the user is added into the system, an email template can be triggered from the system saying that, hey, user, you have been added to this particular system. Here is the link to activate, or here is the link to access the application. So all these configurations are done. All these configurations are possible using the cloud identity services. And it also supports an overlay overlay screen. So because wherever there is an opportunity, we would definitely like to have our product page in the background. And just a pop-up on the screen, you can see that it basically helps us to have the product information, and overlay helps to log into this particular page itself. So this is also possible using our cloud identity services. Okay. And other thing is, most of the time, since this is one of the service where most of the customers already have an existing setup in place, one is they can either do it as a proxy setup. They can connect to our cloud identity services, to the other backend systems on the proxy setup, or you can try to use whenever you're trying to create a user. So either you can do a self-registration or sync through IPS, or if you have a CSV file, you can just simply upload it, or one of the option is manual creation. So there are multiple ways that you can do it. So you can explore all these services itself. Okay. All right. So if I log into the cockpit itself, so this is where you do the user management, mass import export, all these details. I will talk about it when I go to the demo section. Okay, so let's shift the gear from the identity authentication services into the provisioning system. So the provisioning system basically takes care of the life cycle of an employee. So if I take a simple example of an employee that we are interviewing and then we are hiring him for the company. So this is basically on the onboarding process. So you are basically creating a new user in the account, and you're also assigning the authorizations that's important for him to access some of the applications. So it could be something like leave application, paycheck application, or some of the scenarios within the success factors that he needs to have access to so that he can start working upon the scenarios. And then during his employee tenure, he might receive a promotion, there is a position change or a promotion. So he needs additional access to this applications. And again, towards the end, you can see that we also have an offboarding scenario. In case if the employee quits the company, there is a termination that is happening. So at each of these stages, there are multiple roles and multiple application access that needs to be created. And there can be multiple groups that can be created using the identity provisioning, to which the user can be granted access. So the user access can be granted automatically using the job schedules that we can do at the source system. So how exactly do we do this? So with your cloud identity provisioning service, you can see that there are two factors that we consider. One is the system source connector. The second one is a target proxy system connector. So on the left-hand side, the source system, you can have your user store, your complete user repository. And on the right-hand side, you can talk about the cloud applications itself, the business applications that you are talking about. And when you're connecting both these systems, it basically helps you to take care of your identity lifecycle management and manage the group roles and the assignments that it is necessary for the users to start working upon it. So here you can see that you in the identity provisioning, so you can basically connect to your corporate user store, make use of these identity source and destination configurations, and retrieve the user attributes and give access to the applications that they are only authorized to. So this is again based on complete standards, so identity management, and it can also support some of your hybrid landscape and also non-SAP IDM solution. But there could be some of the limitations. So we would recommend, in case if you're working with third-party applications, please do be aware about the limitations before you consider for third-party scenarios. All right. So again, this is with regards to how to set your policies. So you can see you can set policies and you can define rules for your assessments based on the input data. And you can take one of the examples, like you would like to set up for your organizational roles. You can create policies over there and you can map some of these details. And it also gives you the mapping capabilities. So for example, in one of the application, you have your first name and your last name. And in a different application, you might call it as first name and a family name. So this basically can be mapped using the different models and different attributes, and it takes care of all these values whenever you're mapping these attributes at the identity provisioning system itself. And then we have the integration capabilities. So over here, you can see that it can connect to your hybrid landscape. So on the right-hand side, you can see we have the on-premise system, identity management service, which has been used for your on-premise. And this can be connected to your identity provisioning. And once the users are authenticated at your on-premise system, you can very well use of your cloud application. So again, there will be a little bit of setup and the configurations that is necessary. So you might need to understand the prerequisites and the configurations that is important in case if you're going with a hybrid approach. Yeah. Yeah, so important things that we would like to focus here is in terms of the connector types. So every provisioning system has a list of details like what are the source systems supported, what are the target systems it is supported, what are the proxy systems that it is supported. So I've captured the documentation link, the help documentation I've just included over here. So I will be sharing that towards the end of the in the demo, I'll just walk you through some of these details over here. Okay, so the last topic is with regards to the global user identity service itself. Now, within the business technology platform, if you're already using it, you will be able to see some of the services like default identity provider. So with the default identity provider and the custom SAP Cloud Identity Services coming into picture. So you might also be aware that wherever you're trying to access any of your applications, the user login page automatically takes you to the global user ID. So this is nothing but a UUID that we call it as. So a global user ID. So this can help you to map multiple user IDs, and it ensures that all the user IDs, in case if you have multiple user IDs, everything is merged together or clubbed together, and it gives you an experience so that you do not have to remember multiple authentication username and passwords. So here you have option to create global user IDs at different systems, or you can create global user ID at the cloud identity service as well, so that it can help you to talk to multiple applications within this particular system. Okay, so let me go to the demo before I walk you through the roadmap. So yeah, okay, let me just sign in again. So remember, we spoke about the platform users and the business users. So I'll show you how to create this platform users and the business users. Within your business technology platform cockpit, at the global account level, you have the option to set up a trust between your BTP cockpit and the cloud identity services, because these are two different tenants, the two different URLs that is basically working. So within this BTP cockpit, I go to trust configuration, and then I simply click on establish trust. And whatever service has been activated, in my case, I've just activated one tenant, which is a non-productive system. So if I click on the establish trust button, it basically gives me the list of all the IPS or the IS services that is available. So all I have to do is I have to select my system, and then I click on the next button. So over here, it'll ask me what is the domain that you want to configure. So this is a new feature that we have introduced. So here you can see that some of the systems make use of cloud.sap, and some of the systems are still working on ondemand.com. So if I open my admin console, this is my cloud identity services, you can see it is clearly ondemand.com. So I'll just go ahead and select on demand and then click on the next button. And in the next screen, it is showing me that it is trying to configure for platform users. So this is basically at the cockpit level, you cannot have any applications configured. You need a sub account so that you can configure your application, you can develop your applications. So sub account is a place where you're actually managing all the application interfaces, right? So at the global account level, we can only have platform users who will be working with the platform. So I don't have to make any changes. All I have to do is I have to click on next, and then I click on the finish button. So one important thing is when you're hitting on the finish button, so the platform users trust will be established to all the sub accounts. So you can see the trust has been created and soon will appear in directories, sub accounts, Cloud Foundry environments everywhere. So if I go back to my account explorer, the platform users trust has been established in all these areas. So if I go to directories or if I go to sub accounts, everywhere the platform users will be available. The trust is already established. But again, you would still need to manage the authorizations of each of these sections. So if I go to trust configuration, you will be able to see that the platform user trust is already established. Okay, so this might take some time. Let me just refresh. And once this platform user is created, if you're trying to establish the trust, so you can see the trust has been established for all the platform users. Now, if I click on the establish trust at the sub-account level, and we might have to repeat the same steps. So here it'll pick up all the identity services. So I select the one that I have, I click on next, and then select the domain ondemand.com, and then I click on next. So here you can see the difference over here. So this is establishing a trust for your application users. So the application users are nothing but your business users, right? So you just click on next, and then you click on the finish button. So here you will be able to see that there are two different authentication. One is for your platform users, one for your application users. So all these things can be separated. So you have these things managed separately, and the platform users can be given access only to the platform, and whereas the application users can directly access your application that are hosted or that are configured for your business users. Okay, so moving on to the cockpit itself. So this is where you get access to all your cloud identity service and the authorization. So over here, you can see we have user management. So from here, we can create users manually, or in case if you have an option to upload the CSV file, you can also make use of that particular service. So here, these are the list of users. All I have to do is click on the add button, enter the first name, last name, user type. So is it an employee, customer, partner? Based on these user type selection, do you want to send an activation email, or do you want to set an initial password so that you can share it with the user? So all these multiple options are available, and you can pick and choose what type of setup you want to do. And then if you want to add an administrator, you directly get into the administrator page. And over here, it gives you an option to add as an administrator or add as a system. So most of the times you need a general username and password so that it can connect between systems. So that's where you can either create an administrator or a system user so that it can help you to connect between multiple systems. So you can see an administrator will look with this icon, and a system user will come up with this particular small database icon. So there are multiple things that you can configure over here. And then you have the option to import and export users, and you also have real-time provisioning. Just in case if you want to have a real-time registration of users, you can make use of these configurations as well. And if I go into the identity provisioning service, so this is where I was talking about the source system and the target system. So if I go to the source system, I can pick up some of the examples like where we are trying to connect to an S/4HANA system. So here we are configuring and we are trying to set some of these properties. So in this particular configuration, you might need to edit or modify the policies or the transformations that are listed over here. So these are some of the mappings that you do, right? So these are some of the mappings. So either you can do it with the graphical representation, or you can go to the JSON view, and then you can see all the details that are available over here. Most of these details have been documented very clearly at the help section. I'll go to that particular topic as well. And you might also need to add some of these properties that is important for you to connect to your backend as well as the application that you're connecting with. And once these configurations are taken care, the transformation and the properties, you might also need to focus on jobs, because any changes that you're doing in the transformation of the properties, you need to run the job itself so that it ensures that it picks up the latest changes that you have done. And in case if you think that you would need to get users on a regular basis, you can also schedule this job so that it picks up all the authorizations and the changes that you're doing at any point of time. And you can take a look at all these provisioning logs. You can come to the provisioning logs, and it will basically give you what did run successfully, what failed, and if it failed, what is the error. So you need to click on it. And you can see some of the errors that it cannot read entities from the source file or source system. So a lot of you can see that there is a HTTP authorization issue, which we are trying to fix it. So some of these some of these details can be checked using these services. And if you move on to applications and resources over here, you can see we have a lot of configurations at the Cloud Identity Services itself. So I was talking about terms and conditions, policy-based documentation. So if you want to set up some of these things, email templates, password policies, all these capabilities are available using the Cloud Identity Services. And if you're trying to connect to your identity providers, so either you can make use of the Cloud Identity Provider, or if you're trying to set up a community, you can make use of the social identity provider, and this can basically authenticate against your Instagram, Facebook, or any LinkedIn or any other services itself. And then we have the monitoring and the reporting, where you can take a look at the reporting, audit logs, and troubleshooting logs. Everything can be managed over here. So quick thing on the help guide. So over here, you can see this is the link that can help you to get started with your identity authentication. And you can see the initial setup details and what are the scenarios that you can consider. So you can do B2C, B2B, and B2E scenarios. And each of these steps that I just spoke about in terms of configuring application, password policies, everything has been documented in the help documentation. If I move on to the IPS topic, you can see that the supported source systems over here. So source systems, you can see it supports basically all these systems that are listed over here. So you can see Ariba, ABAP, Analytics Cloud, uh, Field Class, Enterprise Portal, Jam Collaboration, S4HANA. So all these systems are supported over here. So if I pick up any of these services, for example, Advanced Edition of BuildWork Zone. So when you're trying to set it up, it also requires you to make some changes in your properties and the transformations. So you remember we spoke about the changes in the transformations. So me go back over here. Yeah, so this is nothing but the transformation that is listed in the help documentation. So all the changes that you need to do over here is being captured in this transformation section, and the properties that you need to add in case if you're trying to configure the build workzone advanced edition. So on the same lines, we have also documented a complete step-by-step guide so that you can make use of the cloud identity services for your applications. So here you can see that we are trying to activate it. We are trying to configure the applications. We are trying to establish trust. We are also trying to change the global user ID so that it can pick up any of the user login that you're trying to use whenever you're trying to log into the application. So here you can see that we are trying to map the details, change the property details, add more properties, and also the transformation that it is necessary for the application to be working end to end. So on a similar line, so you can check what configurations that you're planning to do for your project, and you can ensure that all these values are taken care whenever you're doing the configurations. And once the configurations are done, you might also have to take a look at the target system, because this is only as a part of the source. So you need to make the target system configurations as well. Once you do these configurations, the application will start working end to end. Okay, so this is where I just wanted to pay some attention over here. Based on your requirement, you can take a look at what services you're trying to configure, and based on it, you can start working upon your scenario. Okay, so I guess this is all I wanted to cover as a part of the demo. So let me just go back to my slides. So every product that we are working on from SAP definitely has a roadmap so that we have the complete vision. So please take a look at the roadmap of Cloud Identity Services, and this includes some of the details for IAS and IPS. What improvements are we trying to add? Most of the details are captured in the roadmap. So please be aware of it in case if you think that something is missing. This is a place that you can take a look, like what are the considerations that we're doing for the future releases. And for further information, you can always log into our community and the help documentation that I just showed, and you can take a look at all the information that it is supportive for you. All right, so I guess that's pretty much about it.
Great. Thank you, Nagesh. There's a number of questions in the chat, so let's start with Satish's question. Do you
Sure.
have some sort of an relationship diagram showing sub-accounts, applications, IAS tenants, including proxy mode, corporate IDPs, etc.?
Not at this moment, but yes, I think there are a couple of blocks where we are trying to describe. A couple of SAP professionals have shared the details, like how it exactly looks like in terms of the proxy. Probably I can just share one of the document. Just give me a minute. So I think this specifically was talking about the proxy setup, right?
I believe so.
Okay, if it's a proxy, probably you can take a look at this blog, which talks about connecting to your Azure ID using the OpenID Connect. So I'm not sure if it completely matches the requirement, but yes, you can take a look at this one.
Nagesh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, the focus is proxy, and that's where most of our users are coming from. Occasionally, there can be S-user IDs with the SAP ID also. So
Yeah.
I'm more interested in looking at the overall many-to-many scenarios as to how, with multiple sub-accounts and multiple IDPs, somebody else asked that question also, having more than one IDPs for a sub-account, etc. So how the cardinality will be if we want to implement a full-blown IS.
Yeah, I guess this might have to be discussed with the security experts itself, because some of these details needs to be taken case by case, right? So you might not have a general answer. So that's why I shared one of the document where you can see that you can configure with your proxy Azure using the OpenID Connect that we just spoke about. So you can check these blog posts and you can see how you can configure it within your sub accounts for the applications.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Thanks for that question, Satish. So there's a question from Guy. Can we have a mix of users stored in IAS and connect to corporate IDP? We would like to use the corporate IDP for controlling the platform access. Could also be used for business users, but so far business users use corporate IDP directly.
Yes, a mix of both the things is also possible. So it's just a matter of configurations. Like for platform users, you can use it with the cloud identity services, and with your corporate, you can have the business users accessing the applications that you have.
Okay. And another one from Manish. Steve, bear with us. There's a number of questions in the chat. Can we now use multiple IDPs for a sub account?
I can get back on it. I'm not very sure like how to configure it. I have not done it personally, so that's something that I have to take and come back to you.
Okay. And then one from Jan. Can we customize the overlay with customer branding?
I think that is possible. Yes, that's an overlay. Yes, it is possible.
Okay.
And Nagesh, on that previous question, I can say we have the case of multiple IDPs for a sub account, so that is possible.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Satish.
Okay. One from Martin. Are we going to be notified the moment SAP will change the domain to be SAP or star.sap?
Yes, any changes that happens at the domain level, yes, there will be a notification that will be sent out, because that might change some of the configurations. So definitely there will be a notification on it.
Okay. Okay, so I guess the rest of the questions are for the presentation. So the presentation material will be made available to you guys very shortly on our main hub, but you'll be able to find the recording on YouTube in about 24 hours. It just takes a bit of time for us to upload. There is a couple of questions in the Q&A portion. So there's one from Deepak. We have a partner account and we're creating a trust with sub-accounts, but in the screen, it's not having a sub-account in the drop-down. And we have a default provider, and how do we add a separate service and applications?
Probably, Deepak, if you can send your send the screenshot. I'm not able to relate like what sub account that you're talking about. So probably reach out to me in an email. I can get back to you with my answer.
Okay, thank you. One follow-up question was, can we host a non-SAP application in the tile in a SuccessFactor and use the IAS service for authentication?
That could be something like a third party, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if SuccessFactor is allowing it, maybe yes, you can go ahead, because I'm not quite familiar with SuccessFactor configurations. So if SuccessFactor is supporting, and if that third-party application requires authentication, and if you're making use of cloud identity service, there will be additional cost that will incur because it's on the third-party application, right? So you might have to be aware of it. And if the configurations are supported, you can go ahead and do that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Nagesh?
Yes.
So we are just starting implementing BTP and SuccessFactor, Ribbon, Concur here.
Okay.
My question is, currently we are managing our users with SAP GRC. So is there a possibility of connecting GRC and sync up the user base from GRC to the identity management?
I believe, yes, there is an option to connect. Is this GRC an on-premise, or you're talking about the...
It's on-prem GRC.
On-prem. Okay. I think the cloud version, we are calling it as IAG, so Identity Access Group. So if you can probably, do you have a CSP assigned for your account for BTP?
I believe so.
Yeah, so I would recommend to reach out to your account, CSP, so that they can drive this discussion and give you the support on that.
Okay. Is there any presentation or documentation link if it's possible for you to share with us?
I can check on that. So you can drop me an email. I can, along with your along with the company name, please do reach out to me. I will also check that information and I will pass it on to you.
Okay. Do I have your email address, Nagesh?
I put
it's
it in the
chat.
chat.
I guess. Yes.
Yeah. So if you scroll up, you should see it. Everybody's email address. Okay, we do have just like a minute or so left, and I know that we have one question here, and maybe longer to answer, from Anonymous. Can we discuss anything around IAG as well?
Not at this moment, because IAG is a different topic altogether. So we do not. The mission that we have right now is not focusing on IAG. So unfortunately, not much on IAG today.
Okay. And then another one from Stefan that just came in. Is there a recipe to integrate OKTA?
Okta, yes, it supports Okta. Yeah. Okay. We have a couple of blogs. You can search for it on how to connect your cloud identity services with Okta. There are a couple of blogs which details on how to connect it and how to configure it. So you should be able to find that very quickly in the community.
Okay, great. I don't see any additional questions. Please let us know if I've missed one of your questions. Unmute your line and ask your question. I see Ravi. Okay, Ravi is not okay. If there's anybody that has a question that has been answered, please unmute your line and ask your question, or type your question in the chat. Okay.
Nagesh, can you please put your email again in the chat? I don't see in the chat yet.
Okay.
I'll put everybody's.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
It was a great session, Nagesh and Taurus. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Nagesh, for a really great session. Hopefully, we've answered most of your questions. If a new question has popped up, please do see Nagesh's contact information in the chat, as well as the rest of the team's contact information. This is our last episode for 2023. Please tune in again in 2024 and look out for a new series of meeting requests that I'll be sending out to all of you, and hopefully you'll be able to join us in 2024. Hopefully that this year's sessions have brought some good value and some great information for you, and hopefully you'll join us again in 2024. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you again in January. Thank you so much, and have a great morning, afternoon, or evening wherever you're located.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.